Welcome everyone to the 15th annual Growing Online Learning Conference presented by Illinois Community Colleges Online. The theme for the 2023 conference is creating meaningful interactions in the online classroom. We hope that this year's conference offers you ideas and strategies to engage your students. My name is Lori Wendt, and I'll be moderating this session. ILCO would like to thank Heartland Community College for providing the web conferencing platform for use in this year's conference, as in past years. And please note that captioning is available for the conference sessions. This has been our schedule. We are now in the last session of our 3-day conference. So if you've been with us this entire time, we thank you and appreciate your being here. We will be emailing the link to the survey for the conference after the conference. The conference recordings will be available next week, I believe, through the ILCO website. And if you need more information about the conference or about ILCO in general, then you can email Jeff Newell at jeff.newell@illinois.gov. And I think that's it. And so then I'm going to turn it over to Allison and Lisa, who have just agreed that they will introduce themselves and saving me the embarrassment of butchering their names for them. So take it over.
Thanks, Lori. We appreciate it. Just a little housekeeping on the front end. It might be helpful as we're both going to be talking back and forth in our dialogue to change your view to be in the speaker view if you're currently in the gallery view, just to make our titles kind of show up as we're speaking. That might be a more comfortable view for you. Okay, I'm Lisa Dierda. I am an Assistant Dean in the Center for Teaching and Learning at Moraine Valley Community College, and I am thankful to have Dr. Alison Lacny with me here today to have a conversation with you on how we engage our students. I'm really pleased that she agreed to have this conversation with me, and just to provide a little bit of context, as we were getting started, I jumped in, I put on my administrator hat, and jumped right into all things RSI and what it means, and what our responsibilities are related to that, and to try to encourage her with some strategies and things that she could share. And I appreciated her context and sitting down and saying, Lisa, that's just good teaching. She goes, all of those things fit nicely and plug into all of these checklists and things that you're trying to create and do. But so many of us are doing these things already. So I really appreciated her sharing that with me. And our dialogue went in so many different directions, but there were so many useful strategies that came out of it and how she really is engaging with her students. And I'm grateful that she's going to share some of those experiences with you today. Just a little bit about Moraine Valley for some context. We are in the suburbs of Chicago in Palos Hills, Illinois. We are a fairly large campus with a pretty healthy online learning enrollment. We offer classes online, hybrid, and virtually. Allison does teach a combination of those classes for us, both in the classroom and online. And then we are a Canvas institution. So some of the examples, just so you are aware, might be in reference to Canvas as we kind of go on throughout. Okay, so I will go ahead and just start asking some questions. So Allison, if you would just introduce yourself and tell us all a little bit about yourself and your teaching experience.
Sure. Well, as you said, we are on the South Side. I've never really left the South Side. I grew up here. My father is a retired police officer. My mother is a retired preschool teacher. My husband is a retired firefighter. We're now currently raising 7 kids together, all under one roof. My teaching experience started at the high school level. Right out of college, I started subbing. And then I briefly taught at what is now the former Robert Morris University in downtown Chicago before I was hired at Moraine Valley as an adjunct, and then was honored to be hired as a full-time faculty member. Now, this doesn't include teaching my siblings in our Southside basement, because I've been teaching them forever and ever. So yeah, I think I've been teaching forever and ever. I've taught, wow. Do you remember when you used to get those videos from the library? And before Canvas, we had Blackboard, and then before Blackboard, there was Front Page.
Yeah.
Remember? And
Mhm.
then we had, yeah, you got the videos and you did that. So yeah, I've been here a really, really long time. A really long time, and taught all different formats, face-to-face, hybrid, fully online. You name it, I've tried to teach it.
All right. So I'm sure some of the strategies and things that you share will probably straddle all of those modalities. So just as we kind of go along, feel free to kind of jump in and share, how it applies to maybe sometimes the different learning environments that we have. But one of the things I know that you're really good at is creating really good, healthy relationships with your students. I think setting the tone early in the classroom to have those open dialogues with your students. So what are some of the ways that you do to kind of set that up in your classroom to get to know your students and create opportunities for them to get to know you?
That's a really good question. So right from the beginning, I send out a welcome letter before the semester even starts. And I know a lot of professors do that. But so I feel like I have to, in the same vein, be true to myself and try to make my personality stay in line. I'm a little bit goofy. I'm a little bit friendly. So I try to make mine stay in that same vein, but also keep in the same tone of what is really serious. So, hey, we're going to have a good time, but read the syllabus. Like, the syllabus is super duper important. Get the textbook. However, if you're going to have problems getting the textbook, reach out and let me know. We have resources on campus that can help you do that. So instead of just saying Soc 101, read this stuff, I'll be like, hey, this is really important. I also require my online students to do a student introduction. And again, I know that a lot of instructors are doing online introductions for the first week or so. However, I try to tie this into sociology. So they're having to do a discipline-specific activity and relate it to class. So I have them take a what kind of theorist are you test. So like, what kind of Disney princess are you? So they have to at least dabble in theory and then post it into their introduction. And then comment as to whether they agree with it, whether they not agree with it. And then I ask them to at least respond a little bit to other students. So I know, again, you and I talked about, checking off boxes. Can they post? Can they respond? Are they, do they have all of these requirements that we need to make sure that our students are successful in to, have a good, thoughtful, robust experience in an online class?
So what do you think the key is to creating those positive relationships with your students so that they trust you, they're as willing to engage with you as you are to reach out to them, and to really see you as a guide and resource for them as opposed to the person that grades their work?
Okay, so going back to like those online introductions, right, in the first week, I'll take notes of what they say. One of the first things I ask them is like, what is your name and how do you want me to refer to you? I'll keep a Post-it note. So as I'm going through the semester, I take that out and refer to that as I'm grading. So I'm keeping a record of who they are and how they're evolving throughout the semester. So if somebody's name is, I don't know, Elizabeth, but that person prefers to go by Beth, as I'm grading in responding to their future discussion boards, I don't keep referring to that student as Elizabeth, because that student has already asked to be called Beth in the beginning of the semester. And then again, as I'm going through and I'm grading and I'm responding, instead of just saying something like, "Oh, great post," or "nice job," I want to make sure that they know I have thoroughly read and have taken in what they're saying and giving them proper feedback and encouraging them to go on a little bit further. I also want to let them know that I'm not just here. I've been an online student, so I kind of get where they've been. And it can feel cold just responding to a computer. And so I want to let them know I've been where you are. I've been where you are. Just because it's an online class per se, doesn't mean I'm not your teacher. Doesn't mean I'm not here for you. If you're running into an issue, if you're, having trouble, I'm your first line of defense. I might not have that magic wand to fix whatever you're having, but I can get you pointed in the right direction. So I try to make sure that that's articulated really early in the semester with, whatever, within my syllabus. I post a syllabus that's very clear. And if we have an opportunity, I have, if we can screen share, I can show you all of the little links that I
Sure.
put in the icons, so they can link that. Our college posts a general information sheet that's absolutely invaluable. And I encourage students to also use that. So if they're having trouble, we're not just insulated into our classroom, that they're a part of a bigger community when they're here. They really are.
Thank you. So how would you say that you define those expectations for your students, so that you have some instructor to student interactions, student to student interactions, they're reaching out to you for support. It seems like you've set up some good context for them to be able to do that, and you've kind of created this welcoming environment. But how do you hold them accountable when those expectations aren't met and they're not asking you for support, and you kind of have to track them down to kind of help them kind of get to the next phase and get over whatever hurdles they're facing?
Right. We've all been there, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
of course, you start with a strong syllabus, of course, that always helps. A nice, clear, defined, like these are, this is how the classroom's supposed to run. This is what we're hoping to gain. And, by the end of the semester, your brain will be filled with all kinds of wonderful stuff. But of course, we have students that run into, they hit roadblocks. I have my teaching philosophy, and I'm happy to share this, is I want my students, I treat my students the way I would want my own children, all 7 of them, to be treated by other teachers. And here, so baseline, here's what this means. I would want them to be treated with clear expectations. I would want their instructors, professors, teachers to get back to them in a timely manner, in a reasonably timely manner. I would want the expectations to be consistent. And I would want them to be treated with respect and decency. And that's the way that I approach each and every one of my students, whether they're in an online or other modality. I think from there, using a nice clear rubric that is attached to the assignment also gives them a good starting point, gives them those points. Now, when we start to see students wiggle away, sometimes a nice, clear, cool conversation can happen, right? An email sometimes can pop up, right? That can help. You and I just recently had a conversation how sometimes it's easier to get the phone call than it is to make the phone call. It has not been unheard of for me to call a student be like, hey, are you doing all right? Did you know, this assignment was due? Are you having an issue? And sometimes that's all it really takes to get a student back on track. If I know a student is involved in a certain activity on campus, if I know a student has a certain tie with another instructor on campus, or is a student athlete, I'll reach out to that coach or student, or I'm sorry, other instructor, and say, hey, is this person okay? What's going on? And sometimes that's all it takes, is that extra support.
As part of your getting to know you process with your students, do you ask them how they like to be communicated with? Like, do you ask them, do you prefer if I call you if you're falling behind, or if I email you, or kind of the methods that would work best for them?
That's funny you say it. In fact, I do. I will say, maybe you registered with this number, and I don't, I don't necessarily have the access to your records. And if I need to get a hold of you quickly, how do you want me to get a hold of you?
That's right. So they're not surprised when they get that phone call, right? That's how they told you to
No.
reach out when you do.
And to date, and I'm always, when I'm always worried, like, is somebody going to come back and be like, here, I'll be honest, sometimes they're like, wow, I had a professor call me. But I've never, ever had, don't ever call me again. Most of them are more than willing to have a conversation, and have been very thankful to have that kind of support.
Thanks. I would think they're just thankful too that sometimes, I think, especially when students are struggling, that you've noticed that they're struggling or noticed that they're missing. I think that even in itself helps them to feel valued and a part of the community, in your classroom, to say, hey, wait, so-and-so's not been around or hasn't been checking in, that someone's paying attention, I think helps with that accountability side of things as well. So thank you for sharing. I think it is always important to ask them what works for them. I know I've become the person where I'm like, don't call me. If I don't know your number, I'm not going to answer it, and it's going to go to a full mailbox. So please text me, please email me if you need to get my attention. So just asking those things is such a simple way to know then how you keep that communication going with our students when, we're talking about all of this regular and substantive interaction. So what are the best means to interact? I think that's such a fine detail, important thing to know as we're teaching our classes, what methods are most useful for our students, and that all doesn't have to be the same across the board. So
Right.
so thank you for kind of sharing that. I think you've done a really nice job in setting the tones and putting good effort into students getting to know you and feel comfortable with you early in the class, and creating that safe community that once you get into the content, they're more likely to kind of engage and reach out and comfortable with you when you do that on the other side. So kind of shifting into that instructional mode of things, I think one of the requirements to get kind of to our checklist of things is that you provide direct instruction to your students. You share that expertise with them outside of some videos and things like that, and that you're doing that in a regular fashion in this online space and in a way that's somewhat predictable for our students. So what methods do you find most work for you and your classes to kind of provide that direct instruction, and do you follow a schedule or format? And is that consistent from class to class, or do you feel like different classes have different needs?
Well, my course is broken down into 6 modules, and then the first module, and again, I'd be happy to share, to do the screen share. And then there's like a first introductory module that has like how to be successful in Social 101. Here are technology tips, and that was actually taken from our College 101, but then just shifted around for Social 101, because not all of it applies, but a lot of it does. So again, and as you know, there are certain skills that are necessary to be successful in an online class. So I think setting those standards, right away and initially are important. Also with the 6 module, so I set the 6 modules up, and at the beginning of each module, I'll say these are the things that need to be completed in each module, and each of them have a due date with the flexibility to work within those due dates. And then when I sit down to set those due dates, I'll sit with the college academic calendar. So it's, it kind of works with it, right? Because you don't want things due, right smack in the middle of spring break or right in the middle of, a holiday. So kind of lay that out, and allow students to work at their own pace, kind of, but not letting them dump everything all at the end. So there are checkpoints, so to speak.
Do you want to do a share? We could wait to the end, and then I don't know if you want to do a showcase of your class when we're done with the talk, whatever you
That would
prefer.
be, sure, perfect.
You want to do that? Okay, cool. We'll do
Perfect.
that at the end
Okay.
then. Okay. So I know we've talked about this a little bit already, but I think we are unique in that we're in a community college setting,
Yeah.
that we have our online students that I think we all know have many distractions and other responsibilities that they're juggling. Is there anything in particular that you do differently in your teaching or do to reach out to support those students if they're struggling or fall off track? Because how have you kind of taken the makeup of a online community college student and have you tailored your teaching or your support for them in any different kinds of ways based on that audience?
Okay, we have posted office hours, right? I think for online students that may or may not work for them, I think much of the population that takes an online class may very often be doing it for reasons necessary to work around a job, around family. So to have these expectations that we set up an office hour personally and take it for what it's worth, I find it to be easily accommodating to work with other office hours. Here I had conversations with students when one was on a phone when she was in line waiting to pick up her kid from school. I've texted with another student when he was on a break from work. He was on break and we were texting back and forth as he was struggling with an assignment. So I think all of these, extra all these extra pieces of technology that can fit into our classes, we can push them above and beyond. One of the aspects I love about Canvas is the comment library that we have. That's great. So the way I use our comment library is it allows for like this general feedback. So if I know I have an assignment working with the census, and I've given, a task on the census. So I'll say, all right, now that you have all of these skills with the census, here's another way that you can use the census. But then after I post that little piece, and I would give this to all of, that little nugget of information with all of my students, then I'll go back and I can add like something spectacular that perhaps they have done within their work. So I can say, I see that you found this as well as other information I may have asked. So I like that the comment library allows for a general piece. And then as an instructor, I can add my own specific student-specific comment as well. So I really do like using the general comment library.
Nice. I feel like the theme of what I've been hearing you talk about is like you have to figure out what works for a particular student, a particular class. You need to be flexible and responsive to their needs. Hey, I might not be in my perfect hour that's prescribed for this, but if you're at work and I can meet your needs and text you here and there to help you get over this hurdle, that you're on this ride with them, to help them to succeed. If that means, you even have to go out of your way a little bit to be able to help them get to that point. So so I feel like I keep hearing that throughout, that you have this very nurturing environment that you've created where their students are like, okay, yeah, I'll text you, that's okay. So thank you for that. I know it sounds like you've created these nice kind of environments where you can interact with your students and give them feedback. And I think we all can value the importance of having a strong classroom community of learners that get to know each other. Are there anything you do in the class to help your students to kind of get to know each other and be able to find support within each other in those relationships that they establish?
I would say especially with the discussion boards, I have to look back on my own experience as an online student, and I take what I've learned from those, and some of the things that I really valued was specific guidance. Like I wanted to know, what did the professor want from me, and I loved having that. Rubric as well, but I like knowing, what am I supposed to do? So I'll say within a discussion board, here's what I want from you. So I'll say, did your classmate clearly identify such and such? Okay, and then sometimes it could, right? So we start, right? Yes or no. Did your classmates post provide clear evidence? Comment on the similarities and differences between your classmates. Because I think if we just open up this door and say, respond to 3 classmates in 200 words, we're kind of just, throwing them into the deep end of the pool and saying, figure it out. And that doesn't serve really anybody very well. And and I'm not sure, I don't have any, evidence. Well, I guess anecdotal evidence is evidence, but I think that also puts some onus back on the original poster in the discussion boards, that they're like, hey, my peer group is going to be looking at my work, so maybe I better go back and double check that I have evidence, that I do have some academic evidence supporting my, my claims. Am I using terms and content from our textbook? So I'll be quite honest with you, it kind of makes it easier to grade when they know that that they're going to have another set of eyes looking at their work besides just me.
Do you find that you, as you've kind of created some more structure for your students to kind of dialogue in the discussion boards and have some clear expectations and ideas for responses, do you feel like you are as involved in some, I guess, what is your level of involvement in the discussions themselves then? Do you feel like they get off track and you've got to kind of bring in some more knowledge? Do you feel like that there are stronger posts in general that are more factual because of kind of the expectations that you've set, that you can do maybe a little bit less observing and correcting throughout the discussion forums?
I have found that it can depend on the class. Having students review other students' work does elicit stronger responses. When I start to see common themes, I might jump in and, try to, gear discussion in another direction, right? Like I don't want them just, scaffolding on the same idea. Like, oh, I agree with so-and-so. I agree with so-and-so. I want them to build off of one another without copying one another. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, because the yes, I agree, yes, I agree, yes, I agree doesn't cut it. You have to like spin off. So sometimes I'll have to, interrupt, but not usually. If they know I'm lurking in the background, that's usually enough.
So then you find most of your kind of, I don't say feedback and direct instruction happens through the grading of their work as they're submitting their activities or their discussions and things to you. And it's more personalized through, the rubrics and things that you use. You mentioned the comment library and other feedback. Is that, I guess, how are you assessing that work and providing that personalized feedback to them if you don't babysit and try to post, on every post that's out there for your students? How are you adding your voice to that dialogue?
I definitely personal feedback. I try not to, using your terms, try not to babysit, because I don't want to overly influence the tone of each discussion board. There will be times, especially, with sociology, there can be topics that come up that do need critical attention that cannot be planned for before the semester starts. We have here currently the earthquakes in Turkey that is becoming a crisis situation this week. So that might be something that, would be addressed in immediacy. So those are, immediate topics I would jump in and add to a classroom.
Yeah, I know one of the things that you shared is that you love how the rubrics, especially in Canvas, are available to the students to help see the expectations. But I know you mentioned that you use a lot of the commenting feature, so it's not just checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. The feedback that you love being able to add the comments and things individually on that work, so the students can do better next go round. Have you had a lot of feedback on your feedback from students that they appreciate, I guess, the time and effort that you're putting into really tailoring and personalizing that feedback and not just giving them points, I guess, at the end of an assignment or activity?
I wouldn't say I've gotten direct feedback, but I have seen assignments getting better, right? So, and again, when we had this conversation prior to this, when I create a rubric and it helps me grade, right? It makes grading go quicker and easier when I take a rubric and I have it specifically set for the assignment. So it doesn't just say, meets expectations, doesn't meet expectations, or, missing work, right? Like 1, 2, or 3. I like to add, again, I like to put in, my personality up to my comfort level, trying to be true to myself. So I'll say something, college writing level achieved, great job, absolutely perfect. Or, then the next level down would be like, hey, there's a couple typos, a solid proofreading before you submit next time would do you a good job, and then all the way down to, why don't you come see me and we'll get you some writing support from the writing center. So I like having all of those options that not only personalize it, but it saves me a whole bunch of time from having to type the same, Lacnyism again and again and again and again. Because I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I tend to see the same errors. I wouldn't say, I tend to see the same errors occur, right? Like if somebody's having trouble writing, I know what course of action to take. I'm not recreating the wheel. I know where they have to go to get support. If someone has a couple typos, it's just a strong proofreading they need to do. So I don't need to type that 300 times. I just pop that right into the comment library.
I know you mentioned that you like to use like the sandwich approach
method
to giving feedback to students. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Oh yeah, and you know what? And here I'll tell you, we use this in our parenting too. So I call this the sandwich approach. All right. So like when I leave feedback for students, and I try to do and I do this in the classroom as well, or any kind of, so I'll point out like something positive from their work, and then give constructive feedback, right? So we're kind of creating a sandwich. So we've got like this positive feedback, or I'm sorry, so a positive comment, then constructive feedback, and then following it up with some encouragement. Okay, so here, it would be something like this, and here I wrote this one up. So it would read like this, like, "Hi, Julie. Your use of course concepts and terms in your initial post as related to real life are terrific. Seriously, nice work. In the next discussion, I'm going to encourage you to carry that skill into your responses with classmates." So like in this scenario is what I would envision, like this student, Julie, has done a really good job with her initial post. However, like didn't carry that skill into the classmates, either for lack of time, lack of effort. So I'm looking forward to seeing your next submission. Please let me know if I can help you. I'm always happy to discuss this further, right? So here's what I've done. I've like led into something that I really liked. I've pointed out something specific that the student has done that I'm like, hey, this is where I'd like to see you improve next time. And by the way, I'm going to be looking for this next time as well. So that's like my sandwich approach.
Right. Are there times where you feel like you have to do that outreach with your students, and that even like I think we've all been there. Sometimes nothing is really good, and you're really on the struggle bus, I think, to say anything, or they didn't even do the activity. Do you approach that differently? Or, I mean, do you send back a grade of zeros and with tons of feedback that they didn't do it, or at what point do you go to the next, I guess, step? Do you call them and they say, hey, you missed the work, or is something going on, and kind of be able to gauge if that's out of the ordinary for the student, or something that kind of gets your senses up to say something might be going on here because this is not traditional. How do you kind of decide what goes into that feedback to a student, and it's relevant and will be well received, you think, through that format, versus like, hey, this might require different kind of attention? How do you kind of find that line for yourself?
Okay, well, here I need to start with, we have an amazing support system on our campus, right? Like our culture here is phenomenal. I think if we have a struggling student, I'm not on my own here, for sure, right? We have a great academic support system. We have a great counseling department. So if I personally felt that there was a specific student that needed extra support, my first inclination would be to probably reach out and ask ask a dean what his or her recommendation would be. Now, if it was a situation that was a little bit lower tier, that was something I could handle on my own, I would probably, send out an email and just be like, hypothetically, if this was later in the semester and a student had been like turning in work and then suddenly fell off the radar, I would probably shoot an email and be like, hey, this is not like you. What's going on? Do you want to meet up? You missed an assignment. That I love that function in Canvas where you can email students that have missed an assignment. And I don't know what it is about that, but sometimes that's like all it takes. Email students that have missed. And then I like that I can personalize, like, even though I'm emailing like 2 or 3 students that have missed an assignment, I can say, it doesn't have to be a terse email. It can be, very cordial. Like, I just wanted to let you know this was due yesterday. Let's, reach out if you need something. And sometimes, you get the panicked email back like, holy cow, I thought today was Wednesday. We've all been there.
Yeah.
But if there is something going on, that's not my wheelhouse. And like I said, we have an amazing support system here.
As you're giving feedback to the students, if you feel like there's certain themes that come out that maybe there was some additional instruction provided because they all seem to miss a major concept, I guess, how do you respond to that, especially in your online classes? Do you try to share that information in your grading and in your feedback, or do you kind of step back and say, before we move on to the next topic, I need to do a follow-up, announcement or communication or something with my students to hone in on these kind of key concepts that maybe they're all kind of a little shaky on.
Absolutely.
How do you respond to that when it seems like this class just didn't get this for this reason, and kind of regroup before just churning along on the schedule that was set?
Oh, absolutely. And I think all of us can do that, even whether it's online or in person. If there's a major concept that just didn't, that fell flat on its face, you just go back and repackage it and put it back out there and then go forward again. And it would look something like, just another reteach.
And I imagine after you've been teaching, for 21 years, you can kind of start to predict those areas of need for students that might come up. Do you feel like you've adapted your teaching style or the way you approach some of those harder concepts where that's going to get on shaky ground in any different kind of way, while you're providing that kind of direct instruction to the students to really hone in and like, hey, this is where people get stuck? How do you approach that differently?
Well, when I'm grading, I go to that Bloom's taxonomy concept. And so assignments, I usually start with the, going backwards. But if they hit that create, evaluate, and analyze, everything else has got to be on target, because you can't get to that create, analyze, and evaluate without all of the other, definitions and understanding. So that makes it much easier to grade. Now, if students are getting down to the create, analyze, and evaluate, and it's a hot mess, then you can start working backwards and figure out where you need to go back and fix.
Right. I know. I thank you for sharing kind of all of these comments specifically around feedback. Just, I guess, for the people listening to us chat here today, Alison and I got to know each other really well working around Canvas rubrics. So I've seen her class and the detail she puts into it and the feedback that she's been able to provide. So I know I've kind of focused a lot on you sharing around that theme. So thank you for all of that. She's got some really great rubrics in her classes, and she really does do an exemplary job of helping her students stay on track and bring that positivity and kindness to her rubrics to help students feel like I might be stuck, but I've got some help to be able to get over this hurdle, even if I didn't do well, and move on to the next step in the class. Kind of along those lines, I think showing that care for your students and genuine interest in them and trying to really get to know them is an investment in time, especially as a full-time instructor. I know you've got about 150 plus students in a given semester. I will say, how do you balance the load for yourself? So, how do you feel like you can give that support to your students, provide high quality feedback to them and high quality instruction to them in your classes, but then really balance your time so you're not burning out, and you still feel very committed and passionate about what you do. So I guess, what's the secrets to that, and being able to manage all of that so you're not burning out, so you can go on to the next class and give that same kind of energy and enthusiasm and effort to those classes as well?
Oh, I am probably not the best person to talk to about work-life balance. I'm way more work than life. I'll tell you my motivation. Our students stay in this community. They're here. They live here, and they will probably stay here. They will raise their children here. Their parents and grandparents will grow old here. So they're our future teachers. They are our future medical professionals. They are our future first responders. They are our future policymakers, our future business owners. And I don't take this lightly. I think it's our responsibility. It's our job. And this, that it's our culture here, that we have to do the very best of our ability, that we give them every opportunity to not only develop the best education that they can get, but develop the best character when they leave here. It is not uncommon for me to run into former students and current students in stores. I shared with you, I ran into a student in the store the other day. I see students at the ballpark. Yeah, usually when I'm in sweatpants and right, like it's just these are our neighbors, they're our community members. So that's my motivation. We cannot mess this up. We get one chance with these folks.
I think you can kind of feel the care that you have for your students and some of the examples that you've shared here today. And we appreciate you kind of bringing all of that to the table and just kind of having a casual dialogue on your experiences and how you've adapted in these different formats and how you've really supported our students, you know, and how that fits into RSI and all of those other things, but really in how engaging them and establishing those kind of open and positive relationships, and that this is a safe and nurturing place for them to be able to continue to want to learn, and that you're really with their on this journey with them, I think has come through loud and clear. We've got about 14 minutes left, so I don't know if you want to pull up and do a quick kind of tour of your class before we kick it over to questions from our participants here.
Okay. So let me. Okay, it says host disabled participant share screening. So it doesn't look like I can.
Hang on just a second.
Sure thing.
Oh, I didn't get you made a co-host.
Oh, okay.
Try it now.
Hold on. Okay, let me see if this will work. Okay.
All right, we're seeing your screen.
Good. All right, fantastic. Whoa, didn't want that part. Okay. Okay. So here's what I copied this from a course. So it's just a demo class, and this is what it would look like. So on my homepage, I would have like an introductory, you know, read me first, welcome to sociology. So some important issues, you know, read the syllabus seriously, get the textbook. I do try to include some links to make it easier to navigate where they are. I tell them what to expect. So, you know, it's in modules. So there's graded quizzes, discussion boards, you know, where to find your grades. Let me pop back to home. So initially I try to make it kind of visually engaging, you know, with some pop and color. Each of these buttons also, you know, as well as having the links on the side, you know, they can use buttons to get to the syllabus, the module, and their grades. And then I have icons up here as well. So if they want to get to the homepage, the announcements, and then I have a little Bitmoji classroom. It's a little hokey. But this is what I would write on the first day of class if it were an in-person classroom. It's exactly what I would write. So it's there. And then the link if they want to email me. Okay. How do I get out of here? Oh, snap. I'm sorry. I wanted to get to the good stuff here. Okay, so for lack of my ability to do this.
It looks like we lost your share screen. I don't know if you want
Yep.
to try to just do that again and.
Okay, don't, all right, sorry. Okay, well, and then there's other parts where it has just the modules with the syllabus and the links to it. So, but that's a peek around the class.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I didn't see anything pop into the chat, but if anybody has any questions you'd like to ask or anything that you would like to share, kind of in the context of engaging students that you think would be helpful for the audience, you're welcome to do so.
I see a message Denise is asking, can you go into student view? Denise, are you talking about, are you asking Allison to show that? Or are you asking if as an instructor, you can do a student view?
Oh, when she was screen sharing, I was just interested in seeing it as the students would see it, because I know sometimes it looks different when we're in instructor view versus when it's, but that's fine. We're past the screen sharing, so it's okay.
I apologize. Do you want me to try to pop back in there?
No, that's okay. That's all right.
Okay, well, if we don't have any questions and comments, Lori or Jeff, I'm not sure who wants to close it out.
I can do so. Thank you to Lisa and Allison. Let's give them a little round of applause. I wish I had my little applause app open here. Again, the evaluation for this session and all others from the conference will be emailed out, and possibly, is it going to be on the conference website as well? And I'm skimming through my notes here, and it says our schedule for this week, but however, we have come to the close of it. So again, the links to the for the recordings will be available, and the handouts will be available through the ILCO website next week, and that's ilcco.net. If you have any questions about ILCO, about the conference, about any of these sessions, you can contact Jeff Newell at jeff.newell@illinois.gov. Did I get it all?
I think so. Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Allison, for talking with us today. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the honor.
Bye-bye.
Bye.